Welcome to Red Ice Creations. Thank you for tuning in to our Internet Talk radio program. My name is Henrik Palmgren. I'm the editor and webmaster of redicecreations.com. I hope you stop by our website, follow along the news, the forum, and of course this radio show. We do have a new program for you every Thursday and Sunday. And it is the last Sunday of the month, the last Sunday of April already. And that means that we have our monthly regular Alan Watt with us. We spend some time once a month here getting an update from cuttingthroughthematrix.com. That's Alan's website. And we talk about everything from history, conspiracy, geopolitics, current events, and much more that Alan research and do talk about at his website, cuttingthroughthematrix.com. So let's say hello and welcome back to Alan. Nice to have you back with us again.
It's nice to be back on. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on. You know, a lot of things have, of course, been going on since we spoke last month. Things have been quite busy. We have, of course, had the largest shooting, as it were, in the U.S. history, just in the middle of April. There even was a shooting at NASA, at a NASA building a few days after this event, and a few kind of copycat type things have been popping up afterwards. And as I suspect, you know, that you've received quite a few emails about this. I mean, a lot of people are, you know, wondering what's going on, and it's, you know, right just about the time as when Columbine was, on the anniversary coming up and so forth. And there's a lot of info already, of course, surrounding this entire event, as it were. I don't know if you have, you know, gotten into it that much at all, but it always, you know, interesting to get, you know, your take on these big events that obviously, you know, can be played out in numerous of ways to, you know, reform the school system and change society in a number of ways, even going into gun control, of course. But Alan, what's your take on it? What have you heard about it?
It's much the same, really. We get a vague story, really, about the guy's background, which means there's a lot to do with this particular shooter's background, which they know, but they've been told not to disclose it so far. There's no doubt whatsoever that he had a history of psychiatric problems.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out how long they've known this, what type of problem. We do know that he, like other shooters, had pictures on his own site, I think, and other people's site, of him pointing guns at the cameras.
Yeah.
Which are identical to a not so long ago shooting, I think, in Montreal. A person went into a college there. The one in Montreal had been into the Gothic cult, they call it, which was the movement given to the young to copy, as all movements are, from the television, with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and all this stuff, and the occult, and the black clothes, the morbidity to do with death topics and all their conversations. And the one in Montreal dressed like that, and as he pointed guns at cameras and all the rest of it. This guy did the same down in the States. Sure.
I mean, he I think he sent. I don't know if this were the exact story, but there was a first shooting at another building where I think he shot 2 people at first, and then there was like a pause for several hours, and from what I've heard, he actually sent a package with these images that you talk about to, I think it was NBC that received this package, you know, with video material, a lot of photographs and so forth, and that's, you know, an interesting idea to, you know, shoot 2 people actually, and send off a package to a television station, and then going into another building, continuing.
He walked half a mile he walked.
Yeah.
The first shooting, and dropped into the post office, and then continued on his way. Which meant that, I mean, this doesn't happen. This does not happen today. SWAT teams are there immediately.
Yeah, exactly. That is the big question, of course. You know, why they didn't close the school, or the entire, evacuated the school after the first shooting, because it was several hours, afterwards. So in a way, it feels like the SWAT team was there and locked down the school, so this guy basically could go in, in the school area and basically go berserk in there. I don't know.
I've never seen a SWAT team in a domestic dispute in a home. they simply come straight through the windows and doors.
Hmm.
And so they're quick. They don't ask no questions. They get in and they do their job.
Sure.
So yeah, they knew, and someone gave them the command not to enter or get involved until this was pretty well over.
Hmm.
It's obvious. And what's interesting too is the symbology of the numbers.
Indeed.
You have two are initially killed.
Hmm.
Now in Freemasonry, they always begin with the first and second degrees. And then the third one is the master, and then from the third, which is the master, it's a continuous state right up to the 32nd. Now, he killed 32 people. And
yeah.
from the second shooting upwards, it was 32.
Mm.
And then you have himself, which was the 33rd, which is the supposedly illumined man who gets an honorary degree for serving the work. You get all these odd numerical coincidences, which always crop up in these shootings.
Indeed. Did you hear about the name that he had on his arm written in red? I think it was Ismail Ax. Have you been able to pick up something on that?
I haven't gone into it. I've seen it, yeah, but that's right. And I'm sure it's an anagram if you break it down.
Yeah, a lot of people have been looking at it, I guess, and then again, there's so many variations. We could pick up characters from books, whatever. There's endless of material out there on it, but one thing that comes to mind, of course, is that many of these shootings seem to happen also in the April month. I mean, the Columbine was just what was it, days afterwards, and it would have been the anniversary, and I immediately got this feeling that this was kind of a rite of spring type scenario. The victim of the incoming spring, basically. Your take on that?
Well, they also have I think they had the Branch Davidian farm burned down by the BATF, and in April as well. They love April.
Oh, really?
Early the 9th of April, as it usually is, for that high date. And that's a sacrifice in ancient cultures for the kicking off of May, because May the 1st is their big day for kicking off the new their new year, really, fertility.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got May 1st coming up, and side note, I guess, but interesting that a lot of people also actually go to this spot, visiting the area. I think that the Queen is even of England is actually going over there sometime around May. I can't remember the exact date now, if it's around Beltane or something like that. I don't know. But she is going over there, and it seems like a lot of people want to go to that place, as a kind of a ritualistic type event, or actually drawing from it in some way. I don't know. Any ideas about that?
Well, I've no doubt that they are into this type of ceremony. You see it so often. Even the United Nations building, the UN was set up to be to bring in world government, and it doesn't run autonomously. It's ordered to do what it does by the very rich men of the world. And the United Nations building was built on land donated by the Rockefeller family, and it was the largest slaughterhouse in New York. All that land had been for a long, long time, so it was well sacrificed with blood. Yeah, and that's where they built the building. So yeah, they do go into the sacrificial place type thing in a big way. It means a lot to them.
Yeah. Of course, we could, go into the area of mind control. This is as another Manchurian candidate, as it were. Do you think it's necessary, to go that far, or? Yeah,
there's no doubt. Every one of the shooters we've had over these years has, as I say, had psychiatric treatment, so they were well aware of the person's mental capacity. They were well aware that they loved to not play with guns, but literally to even pretend in front of cameras that they were shooting the cameraman. And who knows? And even the one in Montreal, it came out later that the police had been monitoring this particular fellow who went to the college campus, and they were well aware, because he had lots of these pictures on his own video screen which he on his internet site, that, of pointing guns at cameras. So they've been watching him for 4 or 5 years. They know who these people are. And now, if anybody else in society were to do that, they'd come in and just grab you. Why did they watch them for 4 or 5 years and then allow them to do it? And then what kind of treatment are they getting from the psychiatrist? Knowing, remember, that psychiatry from its inception was always to be used to create the new society. Psychiatry said that they should be given the right to vet people to rule over others, for instance, and which also means they help create the mayhem. Psychiatrists have been used in mind control by all governments through all the Cold War. The top psychiatrists were involved in the creation of forms of mind control technique, and I wouldn't be surprised if these characters have all been programmed by the psychiatrists. The same thing happened with the Dunblane shooting in Scotland. The man there, it's the oddest thing, because you had to jump through hoops to get a handgun. It was a recent thing. They hadn't allowed the public to have handguns for centuries. And you had to jump through many hoops, psychological tests, background checks, and they knew that Hamilton was a pedophile. He liked little boys. His room, which they visited beforehand to see if he was stable enough to have a handgun, his room was covered with pictures of half-nude little boys from the Boy Scouts. And yet it was a lord, a British lord, who overrode the police decision not to give him the license. And why would a British lord intervene on a nobody's account to give him the license? He was programmed. So he was seen as a psychiatrist. We know in the Columbine shootings, the Columbine in high masonry is a 5-pointed star, or the leaf of the plant, the flower. Columbine. So the 5-pointed star of masonry. It's also the meaning of being illumined when the spirit comes down to the high degreed masters. It's shown in the shape of a dove coming down. That's also the Columbine. It's the column. It's the bird.
The dove.
Spirit. So you have all these things wrapped up in it. And in the Columbine shooting, 2 years after the event, they gradually released all the film footage that they had, that these boys had taken themselves, of going into the forest with all this expensive firearms that their parents knew about. That's the oddest thing. And thousands of rounds of ammunition. The year prior to the shooting at Columbine, the teachers had given them lectures about death. They all had to write essays on death. Then they had to follow it up by essays on what they would like. The Columbine data on the shooters came out 2 years at least after the initial shock and the media pablum they gave us, and they started to show us videos they'd taken themselves, these boys, of going off into the forest with expensive weaponry, thousands of rounds of ammunition, blasting at everything, every little target they could find, and laughing about what they'd like to do with their schoolmates. And then the teachers gave them, a year prior to the shooting, they gave the class lectures in death. So much so that they even, I think, brought a coffin into the classroom and had each one lay in that coffin. And then it was followed up by, if they had power, if the children had power,